Today's recipe is peach pielets, which are mini peach pies, but I'm making them with apples. So they're little mini apple pies. They are not in my cookbook, which has been out for almost 4 years, because they're a newer recipe, but they are on my recipe blog at straightupfood.com. But if you want more great recipes, check out my cookbook, Straight Up Food. It's on Amazon. It's on my website as well. And you can get it digitally, hardback. I always like to mention that it lays flat, has a nice, nice binding, lots of nice color photos. Thank you to everyone who's purchased the book already. And if you've enjoyed it, please consider leaving a review on Amazon. So you can really use any kind of fruit that you want with this. You could probably use apples with some raspberries thrown in, you know, a combo. You know me, I'm very open to options. I don't like to be bound to a recipe. I like to do what I want. And I'm sure a lot of you are the same way. All right, so I'll check in with your comments in a little bit and let's get started. So like any pie, this is still kind of like a pie, even though they're modified little pies. We have the fruit, we have the sauce, and then we have the crust. So there are a few more steps to this recipe than my typical recipes, but you know, with desserts there usually are a few more steps. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to refer to my recipe here just so I stay on track and don't forget what I'm telling you. So step one is we're going to start the fruit sauce that goes around the fruit, the sauce that goes around the fruit. And I'm going to be using my little TriBest personal blender here for that, and then later I'm going to be using my food processor too. But for a really fine blend, I want to use a blender, and so I'm going to use this little blender. And the reason I'm using the little blender instead of my bigger Vitamix is because the volume is kind of small. So if you try to put a little bit of volume in the big Vitamix jar container, it doesn't blend as well. So this is called the TriBest Personal Blender. If you have a similar different brand one, you can use that. I've been using this one for years and I just love it. The blade is on the end there. These are plastic cups that don't have BPA in them. They also sell glass cups if you prefer. And I do have a store on my website at straightupfood.com if you want to see this and all my favorite kitchen tools, like my lemon juicer, my favorite measuring spoons, and everything else, my knives. So you can find those there. All right, so we're just going to prep this sauce now. We're going to start it and then we're going to finish a little bit later. So this starts with a ½ cup of water. And then I'm going to put in some dates. Now I used all my dates, but this is the container of dates that I bought at the store. You can also get dates bulk, although nowadays we're not doing bulk so much. But in the old days, I used to buy dates bulk, or I buy them like this in the little clamshell. These are medjool dates, so you want to make sure that you take the pits out before you use them because they're very, very hard. Some people find more easily in the store the Deglet Noir dates, which are the little smaller dates. These are generally bigger, the Deglets are smaller, and you can use those too. It's just, they're so small. Usually I do 2 Deglet Noirs for 1 medjool. All right. Now if you've never cooked with dates, this is what I use primarily instead of sugar, white sugar, brown sugar, any other kind of sugar. This is a whole food. I should have saved a whole one to show you, but I forgot. But this is a whole food. It's not a dried fruit. Not that there's anything wrong with dried fruit. It looks like a dried fruit, but it's not. They pick it off the tree when it's nice and soft like this. And this has the flavor of maple syrup or brown sugar, and it's just a really naturally high sugar food. So this is what I use most often in my desserts. If you are a person that likes something less sweet or more sweet, you can always adjust by a date or two. If you make this once and you think, oh, I want it sweeter, just add another date. Easy, easy. So this is, let me just double check, 2 ounces of pitted dates, which is about 4 medjool dates. So I've pitted these and I've just chopped them up a little bit. All right. And then we're also going to add some lemon juice. about 2 tablespoons. This is just one kind of juicer. There are so many types of juicers. If you have one of these, it's always funny in my classes when I teach live, I make this a note, and there's usually one person in the class who says, oh, I've been doing it wrong all this time. But even though your brain tells you it probably goes in like that, it really goes in like this. So you want to put the flat side down so the juice goes out the holes, and it kind of turns it inside out a bit. Okay, and then just really give it a good squeeze. They also make these green and smaller for limes and orange and bigger for oranges, if you're interested in that. So I'm going for 2 tablespoons. These are my magnetic measuring spoons. I just love them because they are magnetized, and they also have 2 ends. They have a jar end. This will fit into a jar more easily than this end. And if you dirty one end, you still have a clean end. So I love these. So I'm going to measure out 2 tablespoons. There we go. And then I'm just going to set this aside so it can soften, those dates can soften a little. That's more important if your dates have just come out of the freezer or the refrigerator. If they're already really soft, then you probably don't have to soak them like this. But I've just gotten the habit of doing that. So I'm going to put these aside, and we'll come back to those in a little bit. All right, so continuing on with step 2, the fruit. So as I said, we're going to do apples today instead of peaches, and I have an apple tree. I have this littlest apple tree, and it makes so many apples, and they are Gravenstein. This is a Gravenstein apple. It's kind of green. It's got little red flecks on it, and these are so delicious. They're perfect for apple pie, and there's other apples that are good for apple pie too, and I'm forgetting them at the moment. Pink Lady, Jonagold maybe. Granny Smith, but just Google best apples for apple pie if you don't have Gravensteins. And generally they are looking for an apple pie, an apple that will hold together a little bit more as opposed to one that will disintegrate. And these Gravensteins are perfect for that. Okay, so I've already gotten all these going here and chopped them up, sliced them up, I guess, put a little lemon juice on them. But I held one out because I wanted to show you how I prepared my apples. I started peeling this one, and then I remembered, oh, I want to show them what a Gravenstein looks like. So go ahead and peel your apple. If you don't want to peel your apple, don't do it. You can leave the peelings on. But for this dessert, I just didn't want those skins on there. All right. And I'm using my Y peeler, and I just love a Y peeler. I've mentioned this before. I like it better than the straight peelers. It just sits in the hand better. I feel like I have better control over it. Okay. If you don't have one of these, this is called a bench scraper. It's just really great to pick up stuff with. And then this is my Mighty Mac knife. I love, love, love this knife. It's about $120, and it's not 8 inches. I forget what it is, 7.5, 7. And it's just the perfect size. I used to use a utility knife like, this is kind of like a steak knife, I guess. But then when I got this, I just loved it so much. I started using it for most everything, like cutting apples, cutting my fruit in the morning. I don't really use these anymore. I keep these in the kitchen though, so I can open boxes with them, which is probably not the best. But then I also have this 8-inch chef's knife that I use less often than this one, but I use it for cutting big onions, butternut squash. If I want to cut like a cauliflower or a big cabbage or something, I like having this. So these are my two main knives. All right, so cut it in half. You can cut these any way you want actually, but this is the way I've been doing it, and just cut them into slices. And the key with the apples here, because apples are harder than peaches, so we want to cut them nice and thin, because this only bakes for 25 minutes. So we want them to get cooked in that amount of time. So just slice them pretty small. If you wanted to use some kind of slicing tool, you could do that. I forgot to take mine out. This is a handheld mandolin that you could use as well, that does really fine, even finer than this, little slices. You would want to use a hand guard with this, or one of those gloves that can't be cut, so you don't cut your fingers. But this is great. I use this all the time to, you know, cut celery. Anything hard will work with this. Carrots. This is a, I think, 2 millimeter blade, and it's porcelain. It doesn't ever need to be sharpened, and it cuts both directions. It's just really great. This is in my store too, and they also make a red one that is adjustable. But I just use my knife so often for all my cutting, so I've just stayed with that. Okay. And what we're going for here is about 4 cups. And I'm gonna add these to my white bowl of other apples. Whoop. If you wanted to chop your apples just into little pieces, you could do that as well. You could probably even put these through the food processor with a cutting blade. And if you wanted to mix some apple with some like Bosc pear, I think that would be really good, or any kind of pear, or an Asian pear would be good. What else goes good with apples? You could throw some raisins in here. All right. Doop. All right, so our apples are done, and this is step 2. And I already put some lemon juice in there just to keep the apples from turning brown, and also to enhance flavor. I did that earlier. So in the section where it says the fruit, 1 tablespoon lemon juice, about 4 medium-large peaches, or about 4 medium-large apples. You want to end up with about 4 cups chopped. All right, so we're going to put this aside. And we're going to go on to step 3, and we're going to start the crust. So the crust goes on the bottom, and it also goes on the top, and we're going to use our food processor for that. And let me get all my ingredients out for this. We're going to get some pecans. We've got some rolled oats and some cinnamon and some non-dairy milk and some more dates. Okay. Now, making the topping, I don't know if you saw the picture, it's kind of like a crumbly, doughy, crumbly topping. So it won't work in a Vitamix or a blender. We have to use a food processor for this. All right, so what we're going to do first is just grind the oats, and this is 1.5 cups, just regular rolled oats. This is 1/4 cup, and I'm going to separate these again once they are ground. And that the little 1/4 cup is going to go into the sauce, and the rest is going to go into the topping. And these are the oats that I'm using. You don't have to use this brand or anything, but I really like I always bought my oats bulk, but I'm really liking these Bob's Red Mill gluten-free oats. They're just really yummy. Okay, so we're just going to process this till it looks like flour. All right. Let me move my food processor up here so you can see. All right, so we are going to, as I said a little bit ago, we're going to remove about a quarter cup of this, and this is going to go into our fruit sauce that we're going to finish up later. I hope I'm not losing you guys. There's lots of little steps here. And this will help thicken our fruit sauce, because if you've ever eaten an apple pie or a fruit pie, there's that sauce that's around the fruit in the middle that's kind of thick. So this is what I'm using to thicken instead of cornstarch or an arrowroot or something like that, which you could use if you want, but I just use the flour. And if you are starting with pre-ground oat flour, it's the same measurement. So this is still 1.5 cups of oat flour. This is a 1/2 cup of pecans. This is the fat for our crust instead of butter or lard or anything like that, shortening. If you don't have pecans, you could use like walnuts would work, cashews would work. I don't know how almonds would work. They might work okay. I haven't tried that though. But nuts I find are pretty interchangeable. All right, so 1/2 cup raw unsalted pecans. And then 1/2 teaspoon of, is that my 1/2 teaspoon of, yes, of cinnamon, just a little bit. And then, again, with the dates, 4 ounces this time instead of 2 ounces, which I did before. So about 6 to 7 medjool dates that I've pitted and just kind of cut up, chopped up like this, so they will, I can distribute them a little more evenly here. Okay. So we are on step 3. We have the rolled oats in there. Oh no, we're step 4. So we added the pecans, the cinnamon, and then the oat flour. And we're going to process this till it looks like coarse flour. Oh, I wasn't supposed to add the dates yet. It's okay. All right. Here we go. So we want to just process this until it looks like coarse sand, basically. And the reason I pulse it is so it'll kind of throw it all up and it doesn't get stuck around the bottom corners, edges. So let's take a look at it. See how that looks great. Everything's kind of evenly processed, but it's not quite a dough yet. So we are going to add a little bit of non-dairy milk. What did I do? We're going to add a little bit of non-dairy milk. See how it's really loose still? When I add that non-dairy milk, just like in a flash, it'll start clumping up like dough. And this is what I'm using, just some organic unsweetened plain soy milk. Whenever I do buy milk at the store, this is usually what I get because this is the ingredient list. It's very teeny tiny. What does it say? Water, organic soybeans. So it's just simple. I also make my own non-dairy milk at home, and I have 4 recipes for that in the cookbook for almond, pecan, oat, and rice. And it always tastes better when you make it at home, but it's not always convenient, so I do keep some of these on hand. And also, just a little aside here, Soy milk is quite rich and quite thick, and it's just a personal preference. I don't like it straight, so I always do like 1/3 of this and 2/3 water, and I keep it in a mason jar like this. So I fill this 1/3 with the soy milk and then the rest with my filtered water, and that to me is a consistency that I like better than this thicker stuff. But that's just me. All right, so we're going to turn it on, and we're going to add about a tablespoon of non-dairy milk as it's going. Whoop, whoop, okay. Hopefully that's not too much. Now, I don't know if you can see this very well. Here, I'll move this closer. But you'll see it's going to start clumping up. Sorry, I'm just looking in my little viewer window there to see what I'm doing because there's a delay. Okay, so you'll see it start clumping up. And if it's not clumping up after you blend it for a while, we'll add a little bit more milk in. And if you're not sure, just take the lid off. Press some between your fingers. See, it's getting there. But I want it a little less loose. I'm just going to add a tiny bit more non-dairy milk. Okay. See how different that looks with just that little extra non-dairy milk. Okay, I think that's good. That's good. I'm going to stop there. And then once you take your bowl off of your food processor, take out the blade and transfer this to a bowl. It's just a little easier instead of grabbing it out of the food processor. And it's still a little bit loose, but that's okay. Because if I were to press it together, see, it turns sticky. Bring back my TriBest personal blender here. And this has the dates, the water, and the lemon juice. So we're just going to give that a blend. Funny noise. I love this blender. I know I said this earlier, but it comes with the little cups. It comes with the tall cups because sometimes I just want to make a little bit of salad dressing, or I want to grind some flax seeds or some nuts or something, and I don't need a big cup. So if you have a Vitamix, it's great to also have a smaller blender where you can just do small volume things. All right. Now I'm going to add in this 1/4 cup flour. My cup is getting full here. And just a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And we're going to blend it again. All right, that looks good. You just want to make sure it's not too coarse But all the coarse bits are kind of really blended up. So that looks really good. Let me just double check here. There's a little texture in there. Maybe I'll just blend it a tiny bit more, and maybe I'll add a little more water, just a hair, to kind of help it. Okay. This is the other size cup that it comes with, a little taller. All right. So we're going to move that out of the way. We're going to get our fruit, and we're going to pour this onto the fruit. Yeah, this is called a Tri-Best. It's in my store at straightupfood.com if you want to check it out. It's a great company. This one is plastic. They don't put BPA in their plastic, which is a preservative that's not good for health. So that's nice. So we're going to pour that over. Ooh, that looks so good. So what I do with my desserts in general, because I love sweets, is I try to just give my favorite recipes makeovers and make them in a way that looks as close as possible to what we are used to eating. So you will find a lot of familiar looking recipes on my website for desserts, like carrot cake. That's a great one. And then what else do I have? Oatmeal raisin cookies. I have cobbler. I have a really good raisin rice pudding. So, okay, so now we are on step 6. We're going to put it all together. So I'm going to use a muffin pan. If you have a silicone muffin pan, you can use that as well. Although, if you have a silicone muffin pan, the flexible ones, you would want to let and you're not using liners, you would want to let your little pies cool completely, because if you try to remove them before they're cool, they might fall apart a little bit. What I like to do is just use some liners, but use the parchment liners. They will not stick. If you use the regular paper liners, cupcake liners, they will often stick because there's no oil or butter in here. There is the fat from the nuts in here, but just play it safe. Use these parchment paper liners instead. And if you want to, afterwards and after they've cooled, like maybe you're doing a kid's party or something and you want them to look a little cuter than this brown stuff, you can carefully remove them from these and then put them in a cute liner. Or you can just put a cute liner underneath one of those after it's all done. So there are options. Okay. And these are, I find these online, they are in my store, or like at a Whole Foods or health food store, you'll have better luck at finding these parchment paper liners. They also have miniature liners, if you have a miniature pan, and they have extra large ones. These are called, I don't know if you caught that, large, but they are just your standard liners. I don't know why they call them large. All right. So what am I looking for? So the next step, oh, and you know what? I'm going to preheat my oven because I have not done that yet. Okay. And I already made some of these ahead, so I'll show you what they look like done, but I'm going to, after I stop going live, I'm going to cook these and share them with my people. Okay. So you want to take about a tablespoon of the crust mixture, put it in the bottom, and just smash it down a little bit with the back of preferably a round measuring spoon, or you could use a soup spoon if that works, but this is just so easy since we're already using it to measure. So this is the bottom crust, so actually give it a good little push in there. And if it starts sticking on the bottom, you can use your fingers, or you could put a little flour on the bottom if you want, but maybe the trick is just don't press too hard. But when they're all done, we take them out, we want them to be a little firm on the bottom. And you can kind of use like a heaping tablespoon's worth. And if it goes up the sides a little bit, that's fine. A little crust going up the sides. Okay, I'm only going to demo about 6 of these for you guys, and I'll finish the rest off camera. But yeah, I really like these when they kind of go up the sides a little. Kind of holds the fruit in at the bottom. Okay. A little bit more, a little bit more. Okay. Press it in, press it in. If it sticks, just remove it. And if you get any on the top, just get it off because it will singe in the oven and you don't want that. All right, so once you have the bottom in there, we're going to add our fruit. And just use a soup spoon for this. Okay. And when you're putting the fruit in, you want to be a little mindful. You want it to kind of mostly lay flat. You don't want your pieces like sticking up at weird angles. This is heavy. I'm going to set it over here. So you do have to finesse it just a little bit. You want things kind of flattened because you want to get more fruit in there. Okay. Ooh. Doesn't that look good? Oh. And you can see how saucy it is. It's a little saucy, not too much, not too little. But if you want yours more saucy, feel free to adjust the liquid amount. Get in there. Now, I think these look better when they're a little bit mounded on top, not just flat. So I usually build it up in the middle just a tiny bit. All right, so I'm not going to do all these and take up your time. And now for the last step, back to the bowl of topping. So we're just going to add some of this to the top. Doesn't need to completely cover the top. And then this one, see if there's little chunks like that, that's totally fine. You'll see the one that I made a couple days ago has more of a chunky topping. This one's a little on the dry side, but that's okay. All right, it looks kind of like a coffee cake topping. And if you have extra of this, when you're all done, you can save it and put it over your oatmeal, put it in your oatmeal that's cooking. All right. But this one looks kind of perfect. You can kind of see a little bit of the apple poking through. Okay. Maybe I'll add one little more chunk there. So then we would just put this in the oven, bake it uncovered for about 25 minutes on 350 Fahrenheit. And then here are the finished ones. I made these a couple days ago. They don't look as cute because they've been sitting in the fridge. And when they first come out, the papers are more kind of up like this, but they've kind of splayed out a little bit. But that looks cute, looks like little coffee cakes. But you can see how the topping on this one is a little more crumbly and chunky than the one I did today. But these are so yummy. Look at, there's the crust covering the whole bottom, so there's no apples showing through. These would make a great dessert if you don't want something overly sweet. If you want to take something with you, if you're traveling, or you're road tripping or hiking or something, these are great because you can have a dessert without feeling like you're eating bad stuff. And there's your apples in the middle. Warm these up a tiny bit. Yum, yum. Or eat them cold. All right, you guys, that's it. If you want this recipe, it's posted there at the top. It's not in the book, but check out the Straight Up Food Cookbook if you want more ideas for desserts. There's my pumpkin pie squares. I'll be talking about those more as Thanksgiving comes around. There's an almond poppy seed cake, which is one of my faves. It's kind of like a strawberry shortcake-ish flavor. Zucchini bread, raw apple crumble. There's the carrot cake. See there, that's what I was talking about. You can do 2 muffin liners if you want to look kind of cutesy. Cutesy, cutesy. Maybe you don't want to look cutesy. Maybe you just want to make them for yourself at home, and that is fine too. So thank you guys so much for showing up today, and I will see you next week, where I've forgotten what I'm making next week, but I will post it on my Facebook page the day before, or you can message me if you want to know ahead of time. All right, thank you guys. See you later.